taken its time to get us into derivatives debt, to set up the giant prison grids. Now the memos go out, just got chills, to start staffing the FEMA camps. Came out yesterday, DHS says get ready for massive influx of immigrants. Just turn on the emergency centers. That's their cover, just like in Rex 84 in the 80s. But we can back this off. Tyrants try again. And they're trying to finagle and sell all this right now because they're scared. They always had this as contingency plans. They wanted to take us over softly, but they had it as contingency plans that if we woke up so they don't go to prison. And now they're going, okay, do we use the martial law? Do we go ahead and stage domestic stuff? We've done it a few other times. It hadn't worked too well for us. It works at first, but then it only wakes more of them up later. And they're telling them, we don't have a choice. You think it's just going to be Corzine going to prison? It's going to be all of them. And so they're looking at right now, and they go, what do? We start a big regional war. That'll get them to rally around the government and do what they're told. We'll do some domestic staged events. We'll have more PR with the military on the streets, you know, getting puppy dogs out of sewers and kittens out of trees. Literally that type of stuff. Showed to you yesterday. You know, the jaws of life, the Army helping. We got to acclimate. We got to move forward, intensify the brainwashing, and just go for broke, hide it in plain view. And the memos keep coming out. Oklahoma City, it'll help us, it'll help us, it'll help us. And when they do, new Oklahoma cities, folks, remember, they think you're so stupid, they lobby for it publicly with 1 micron away from saying they did the last one or that they're going to do this one. And the attorney general who's in charge right now ran the cover-up of Oklahoma City and knew full well what happened. And you know what that means. A Noble Lie, Oklahoma City, 1995, the new film, the only modern film on the attacks. Incredible, available at Infowars.com. We'll talk to the producer and director straight ahead. Stay with us. There is the Financial Times article, Obama faces growing credibility crisis. And you scroll down, and there's the quote. The bottom line here is that Americans don't believe in President Obama's leadership, says Rob Shapiro, another former Clinton official and supporter of Mr. Obama. He has to find some way between now and the November, that's coming up, of demonstrating that he is a leader who can command confidence. And short of a 9/11 event or an Oklahoma City bombing, I can't think of how he could do that. And then there's all these internal memos by others saying we need one. Now, for the next hour, we're joined by the makers of A Noble Lie, Chris Emery and James Lane. Chris Emery, of course, was one of the producers, and James Lane's the director. And, of course, I'm in it. A lot of other, Jane Graham, who was a witness to what happened working in HUD, is in it. Terrence Yakee's mother, the police officer who found out the truth that they killed and tortured, is in it. Look, they're with us. I'm going to have them break it down. This is a short segment, long segment coming up. The reason it's important is there's no film made that's just about it, just about Oklahoma City in the last decade or so. And there's no film that's been modernly produced with all the latest info. And the gentlemen that we have on have been researching this for many, many years. I mean, I know that Chris Emery, I've been seeing him investigate this for at least, it's got to be close to a decade. So I think in this short segment, why is this important to you? You guys live in Oklahoma. How did you get started on it? And I think it's important to then break down what we really know about Oklahoma and then see if you agree with me. It's important to get this out now because people need to understand when they stage another one, they're going to use it against the good people in America. And exposing this may stop them from staging a new Oklahoma City. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Absolutely, Alex. And that's one thing that we saw with the underwear bomber. Kurt Haskell, in his first radio interview, said that he knew that there was something wrong with the official story of 9/11, and he was determined not to allow a cover-up to happen with the underwear bomber. So I think that that shows that we are having an effect, the entire, activist community in getting the message out and maybe stopping these events from happening. That's what's important about this documentary, A Noble Lie. We show the methodology that they use to cover up these events and use them to steer, the geopolitical ends. What you're going to get from this documentary is information, whether you know everything about the Oklahoma City bombing or nothing. You're going to walk away with something new because we cover the information that was garnered in the early years of the investigation from the Oklahoma Bombing Investigation Committee, and then we get further into it with the new information that's come out from Jesse Trinidou and his FOIA requests.
Continue.
Go ahead. One good perspective we got on this, Alex, is that here's a whole new generation that has literally grown up since the event happened. And they are the ones that the seeds are being planted on by the corrupt people such as Mr. Shapiro, our current administration, Eric Holder. These people wake up in the morning and have no compunction with lying about this case. It's just absolutely shocking and disgusting. What we want to do is present the generation that was living at the time and the new generation with the correct information so they can make sound decisions and realize, you know what, we're still being lied to about this case.
And that's why the truth's still important, almost 17 years after the fact. These people are still in positions of power today. They still have the ability to perpetrate another event like this. And this is what we're trying to hope for here with the movie, is to get some justice, the deserved administering of punishment to the people that were involved. That's why we chose the title, A Noble Lie. That's from Plato's The Republic. It's a lie told by the elite to maintain social harmony or the position of the elite. And that's what we see happen here, is that, this, whether or not you think, whatever level you think that the federal government had it involved here, it is very obvious that there was a cover-up, and they used this for their own political purposes. There was a great movement at that time against globalization. All of the agenda was completely stalled. You had, patriots all over the country that were trying to restore the Constitution. There was legislation that was trying to be passed, the anti-terrorism legislation. You cover that in the film. And all that was stalled. After the Oklahoma City bombing, if you mentioned anything about, restoring the Constitution or the fighting the expansion of the police state powers, now you're a McVeigh. It was used to silence everybody. And we see that as a precursor to 9/11 and the Patriot Act. This is a methodology that they use over and over again. And Oklahoma City, I think, is one of the best cases that we can use to expose their methodology, because there's so many holes in the case. It's so easy to tear it apart. What we tried to do with this is boil it down to just the most provable essence.
All right, stay there. We're going to come back with the most provable essence. That was James Lane speaking. Chris Emery, the producer, with him. By the way, they got a great video connection with us there in their studio if you're a Prisonplanet.tv viewer. But for the radio listeners, we'll also post this, obviously, by this evening on the public YouTube channel. But it's so important to expose a noble lie, a globalist gambit against liberty to stop the Patriot counter-coup against their takeover.
We're on the march.
A noble lie, Oklahoma City, 1995. Without truth, there is no justice. VZ Lawton, Oklahoma City bombing survivor. And the film is just jam-packed with survivors and eyewitnesses. It really is the antidote to the lie. And if you order it by Sunday, we can guarantee that it'll be shipped out to you before Christmas, so you can give it as a gift or buy a couple copies, one for yourself and one to give friends and family. It is so important to support alternative media and filmmaking with all of this internet censorship coming in and the open announcements that they want to start shutting off the alternative media because we're becoming the dominant media. It is more important than ever that we go with the old-fashioned DVD and VHS and things like that to continue to get this information out to people. Because as the system starts to try to clamp down on free speech, people are going to recognize it more. And the system's doing this because they're being exposed. The system is going in this direction because they're going to get in a lot of trouble if they don't. I mean, Corzine has been caught stealing billions of dollars. He's one of the top White House advisors, former governor in New Jersey, former head of Goldman Sachs. And the rats are leaving the sinking ship. His own people at the CME group are saying, no, he knew about it and gave the order. I'm not going to lie for him. And the media is trying to act like that news didn't come out 3 days ago. This is huge. Just like Fast and Furious. First, he said he didn't know about it. Then it turned out he was intimately involved in it. Now the media says, oh, he put a stop to it, though. The government shipping guns into Mexico to destabilize Mexico, but to also then blame the Second Amendment. And CBS News got those memos. A pure example of a false flag staged event. Now, I want to get into the film. I want to get into the crystallized key points that prove the official story is a fraud and that there was a government cover-up and government involvement, elements of government. But I also want to parallel it to today with the Attorney General, who was the Deputy Attorney General, and we have his emails, thanks to lawsuits and FOIA requests, where he was saying, we got to cover this up. It's a D-Day operation. We've got to get in there and make sure the public doesn't find out what happened. And they did. I mean, you know, people like Terrence Yakey went bye-bye. So again, joining us from Oklahoma are Chris Emery and James Lane, the director, of course, James Lane, and the producer, Chris Emery, who've really made a first-class, only modern film. There were some underground things that came out right after it happened that did a great job exposing, the bombs in the building and the newscast. But it was always grainy, 10th generation. They got the original footage. They got stuff I've never seen before. I mean, folks, it's not hype when I tell you A Noble Lie is a film you want to get. You want to have viewing parties. You want to give it to police, military, now, so that when the globalists stage this stuff, to blame returning veterans and others, because that's what they've built their force up for. People know what they're dealing with. And just like you were mentioning, James, the fact that with because the gentleman on the plane, Kurt Haskell, saw the underwear bomber being got on the plane and things, he made mental note, and his information turned out to be true, and the government had to admit they got the underwear bomber on the plane. And so now our people who are awake to false flag, we're everywhere. And that's really shaking the system up. Please continue.
Yes, and that's why it's important for your viewers and listeners to go to the Infowars Store to pick up this documentary, because it's going to show again the methodology that's been used to cover up these events and again steer us towards globalization. One thing that came out recently, you had Andrew Griffin on from Reddit Report. He was exposing that there's some internal documents that came out from a fusion center that lists the okbombing.net website as a domestic terrorist website. Now, this was originally ran by the Oklahoma Bombing Investigation Committee and the State Representative Charles Key. Now, when we see the NDAA bill being passed, we wonder, okay, well, who are the American citizens that they're going to want to round up and detain indefinitely? Well, it's people that have the audacity to expose their corruption, because these institutions' primary goal above all else, above truth and justice, is self-preservation. And I mean, this is a state representative that just was trying to get to, uncover the truth.
And by the way, the federal document that we showed on air, if we can pull it up, state fusion document, Homeland Security document says OKC investigators are terrorists. We can put the actual document up. That'll pull it up if you want to search it, viewers or listeners or my own team. You notice they give a brief description and they say, this group doesn't believe the official story. They're terrorists. And, of course, it's just a derelict website. He put the report out almost a decade ago, run by State Rep Charles Key, very upstanding with grand jurors and others that were there and knew what happened. General Parton, former head of Air Force Weapons Development. And so here they are telling cops, you investigate this and say it might not be what you were told. You're a terrorist. It's like people 3 weeks ago said, this can't be true. The government's going to secretly arrest citizens, and now it's admitted. But guys, break it down. You've got the floor.
Well, I think we should elaborate on the press, Alex, and what you had brought up. Melissa Klinsing was the news director for Channel 4, KO4 in Oklahoma City, the morning of the bombing. And up to a year following the case, she said, and one of her famous quotes was, there's not one person in Oklahoma City that believes that Timothy McVeigh blew up the Emery building by himself. The New York Times swept in, bought out Channel 4. They did not renew the contract for the news director, and one of the top, I think one of the top beat reporters, Jana Davis, that actually investigated this case. That is a clear sign that the media does control the stories and the way they want to. They will literally go out and buy out a station or a newspaper. So if your listeners are in any doubt that that happens, it continues to happen. We've seen it firsthand right here in Oklahoma City. The blast pattern of the building clearly shows that there was contact charges. There are sources that came forward that we're going to elaborate on, that some were not included in the movie, that heard both the FBI and other law enforcement officers say, look, there were swabs, there were actually samples that were taken off of the columns that clearly show that there was C4 that dismantled those columns.
Yeah, we've got Brigadier General Parton interviewed in the documentary, and he did an excellent analysis saying that there had to be additional ordnance inside the building. He actually showed where they would have to be placed. And
he came and warned people at the time. When he saw it in the news, he saw the blast points on columns further away from columns that weren't damaged right up by the truck. You have the seismographs, the reports, the recordings, the ATF showing up seconds after, police being suspicious about it. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Exactly, and we've got witnesses, actual survivors from the building. I mean, who are you going to believe, the FEMA report or the actual survivors that were in the building? They said that the building was coming down 8 to 10 seconds before the truck bomb went off. I mean, to the point where the building